I really encourage you to pull out your Bibles. We are continuing to dive into the book of Revelation, and this is, I believe, week 6, maybe 5, week 5, okay. So far, in our first week, we introduced you to the 5 principles that we need to keep in mind for reading Revelation. And if you haven't engaged with that message, really encourage you to find time to do that, because it is really important for us to read Revelation well. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that Revelation is the one book of the Bible that has caused the most damage because people have read it wrongly. It has, Haram was just telling me he was watching the Netflix special on David Koresh. It was David Koresh's reading of Revelation. David Koresh was the cult leader in Waco, Texas. And it was his reading of Revelation that led him down the path he went down. It was the wrong reading of Revelation that led the 3 people to shoot the 2 policemen and their next door neighbour last year up in Queensland. It is really important that we read Revelation well, because horrible damage has been done by people who read it badly. So those 5 principles are important. And one of the things to understand is that Revelation is a story that we find ourselves in. The word revelation means a revealing or an unveiling. And so what we're doing is trying to position ourselves in the story and understand the different characters of the story. We started by looking at Babylon and the idea that we are in a world that is not amoral. It is a world system that is actively out to get you to worship anything other than Jesus. That's what Babylon is. And it's pictured as a prostitute who rides on the beast. And then we looked at chapter 12, and so far every Bible commentator I have read, and I've been reading quite a lot, say that chapter 12 is the centerpiece of the whole book of Revelation. And it sort of tells the whole story in one chapter. One of the most recent commentaries on Revelation is by one of the most respected conservative Bible scholars, Thomas Schreiner. And he says, this is his summary of chapter 12. The dragon, Satan, attempts to destroy the child being born, who is Jesus, and the child is exalted to God and to his throne. So the dragon misses what he's trying to do. The death of the Messiah, as was the case with the death of the Lamb in chapter 5, is the means by which the dragon is hurled down from out of heaven. The dragon, filled with rage, despite being evicted from heaven, continues his attempt to destroy God's people, the woman, through persecution. And the dragon's attempt to annihilate the woman is in vain, for the woman will be helped and will survive the dragon's attacks. And we get the picture that most of the dragon's attacks come from his mouth, from his lies. And that is the story of the whole story of Revelation. And that the dragon actually has no authority over the people of God. We then see how the dragon does his attacks. And this is where we're up to in chapter 13. The beast from the sea is commonly called the Antichrist, although not in Revelation. But it is like this parody of Jesus. And the beast from the sea is all about coercive power. It's trying to force you into a mold other than Jesus. It's the sense that you can find hope and fulfillment if you can do what you want. And the beast, there's a sense that through history we've had lots of beasts who are trying to do what they want. And there's been some pretty sad examples of horrific leaders who have exercised the power of self-orientated government, trying to push their agendas. And the beast wants you to align with his agenda. Now, the beast is introduced, then we get another beast. So turn with me to verse 11. It says, "Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth." So what is this second beast? Well, if you turn over the page to chapter 16, you'll see that there is this summary of the dragon, the first beast, and then this second beast is called, this is in verse 13 of chapter 16, a false prophet. And so we get this sense that this second beast is not so much an antichrist, or the antichrist as people get worried about, but it is this sort of religious symbol, this person who is trying, a prophet is someone who tells God's words to the moment. This beast is trying to get you to believe wrong stuff, is what Revelation would have you understand about this beast. And interestingly enough, it had two horns like a lamb. And again, remember what we're saying is Revelation is incredibly symbolic. And if you try and read stuff too literally, it's going to do your head in, and you will misunderstand what's going on here. So there's this double symbolism here. There is the symbolism of, in some ways, it is this gentle little beautiful lamb, and it's got two horns like a lamb. But it speaks like a dragon, is what it says. So it looks safe, it looks beautiful, but it speaks like a dragon. And how does a dragon speak? Well, it speaks lies. It speaks like this river that tries to swamp the people of God with its lies. And so it speaks lies. There's this other contrast, and brace yourself, because again, if you try and read Revelation too literally, as I said, it'll do your head in. You know, there is another lamb, and Dan's going to be talking about this other lamb next week. Do you know how many horns the other lamb has? 7. Jesus, the lamb, has 7 horns. And again, if you're trying to picture Jesus with 7 horns out his head, it's really going to do your head in. That is not what is going on here. Revelation is clearly symbolic, and for Hebrew people, right the way through the Old Testament, horns represent strength. And so at one level, what John is saying in this vision, this lamb looks like a little lamb with 2 horns. And another level, he's saying this lamb is far inferior to the real thing, is kind of what he's saying. He's far less powerful than the real thing. Okay, so what does it do? Verse 12 tells us a fair bit about this beast. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and it made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast. One of the things that is not immediately obvious and we lose in translation is in the Greek, this is not future tense. This sentence here is written to the 7 churches who are getting this, and it is written as present tense. What it's saying is, you're going to encounter this beast, and it's going to try and get you to worship other things than Jesus on behalf of this other beast. It's going to get you to try and put your faith in anything else other than Jesus. It is present tense. And another thing that, in my view, is really unhelpful in terms of how the NIV has translated the book of Revelation and how most Bible translations have handled Revelation, is that John uses a term here technically. He uses where the NIV translates the earth and its inhabitants, he uses the literal term in Greek, earth dwellers. And he uses that term right the way through the book of Revelation in chapter 3, verse 10, 6, verse 10, 8, verse 13, 11, verse 10, 13, verse 8, 12, 14, and chapter 17, verses 2 and 8. And what he's saying, he's contrasting. One of the core themes of Revelation is that there is a reality that is heavenly. There is a real world in the heavens. And Revelation is an unveiling of what's really happening. But he's saying that there are some people who don't get it. They just don't see. And he calls them earth dwellers. People who live as though all that matters is what you can see on earth. And so that is the technical term he uses, earth dwellers. And so it helps you understand that this is really the whole point of Revelation, that it's about unveiling the real world we live in. And the real world we live in is a double level reality where we live in the overlap between heaven and earth. And there is a heavenly reality. And the great temptation is to live as though the only reality is what you see. And if you live as though the only reality is what you see, you are what John would call here in Revelation an earth dweller. Okay. And so what does it do? Well, it's a false prophet on behalf of the beast. For Hebrew people, they would have, and for the New Testament church, they would have been familiar with alternate religions. And in particular, one of the things that is not something that our politicians or leaders try and do, at the time this was written, the Emperor Domitian had circulated coins saying he is a god. It's not something that Anthony Albanese is going to try and do. And it's not something our leaders will be inclined to do. But there is this sense that this beast is trying to point to the people in power and say, worship them. Worship power. And of course, there is a whole lot of other religions. I actually think we are at greatest risk of this beast because we are so smart that we've done away with other religions and we say, well, religion's for people that, are superstitious. And instead, we worship our own abilities to make our own choices. We worship our own power. And that's exactly what the fall in Genesis 3 was about, and that's exactly what the first beast is about. He's about power. And this prophet is trying to get you to say, I'm going to worship power. I'm going to align myself with the ability to get ahead, to make my own decisions, and I'm going to align myself with whoever most looks like they're going to get me in that direction. And so, how does it do it? It performs great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs it was given the power to perform on behalf of the beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast so that the image could speak and cause all who refuse to worship the image to be killed. So what is the job of this second beast? It's to deceive. It's to deceive. The first beast is to use power to force people to do the will of the dragon. The second beast is to deceive you, to organize yourself around the first beast. It's interesting, the number of commentaries that I've come across that say this beast is all about propaganda. This beast is all about propaganda. It's about getting you to believe things that are simply not true and doing miraculous looking stuff to get you to go, wow, isn't he cool? Isn't he tough? I think we need to understand the reality we are in. We overly prize our ability to work out stuff. And so we fall victim to propaganda. We fall victim to propaganda, which is exactly what Jesus said would happen. Matthew 24:24. False messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Jesus says, watch out. No one's going to know when I'm coming back. But before I come back, there's a whole lot of people are going to come and do really clever looking stuff to make it sound like they really know what they're talking about. And they're going to try and deceive you. It's exactly the same word that is used of the false beast, that is deceiving. The greatest risk we have as followers of Jesus is that we will believe the deceptions of the beast and build our life on the deceptions of the beast and its propaganda. What is propaganda? One of the fathers of propaganda describes it this way: the expression of opinions or actions carried out deliberately by individuals or groups with a view to influencing the opinions or actions of other individuals or groups for predetermined ends and through psychological manipulations. What is propaganda? It is trying to get you to feel something or believe something in order to benefit somebody else, and unashamedly using psychological manipulation to do it. One of the more helpful books written about Revelation is called Reading Revelation Responsibly. I was tossing up between that and the one by Scott McKnight to encourage you to read. So if you want to keep delving into Revelation, I'd recommend that. The author of that, Michael Gorman, says, as he talks about this second beast, the function of propaganda is to make evil look good. The demonic divine, violence like peacemaking, like every Marvel movie. Tyranny and oppression like liberation. It makes blind, unquestioning allegiance appear freely chosen. Religiously appropriate devotion. The grand lie doesn't appear to start as deception, but only as rhetorical exaggeration. The exaggeration deepens, lengthens, and broadens in an almost organic act of self-distortion. Eventually, the rhetoric becomes a blatant falsehood, but now people have not only come to believe the lie, they also live the lie over time, and they've been narrated into it. At that point, the exaggeration turned falsehood becomes uncontested and uncontestable truth, and its effects are highly dangerous. I think we need to watch. Satan wants you to believe lies, and these forces of evil, these false prophets will come to you and say, this is how you can get ahead. This is what you can trust. This is what you can put your trust in. And help you get to a point where you no longer know what is right and what is wrong. Propaganda is not a new thing. It's very effective. And just because you believe something's true doesn't mean it's true. I was reflecting on this and thinking about what's the clearest example of a societal shift caused by intentional use of propaganda. And I think, up front, I want to say, I think we as a church have to face the fact that the way we treated and have treated, and probably still treat, people who wrestle with same-sex attraction has been terrible through history. But what's been interesting is you reflect on how society views people who are same-sex attracted. Would you agree that's shifted in the last few years? You've got to believe that didn't happen accidentally. I'm fascinated by the way change happens and how propaganda works. And there was a horrific massacre of gay people in America. And up to that point, gay people had largely been very attacking of people who didn't like them and didn't think the way they thought. And these two guys, Marshall Kirk and Hunter Madsen, got together and said, we've got to think differently about it. We're not going to change everything just by throwing stones. And so they've helped me understand how propaganda works better than any, like I studied marketing at university. Their strategy has been, I found, really helpful, and their book is out of print now. But after it was released, it caused a great consternation because they told the gay community, you've been doing it wrong. You've been busy telling everybody they're wrong, but you've actually got to think differently. What they actually wrote, they said, propaganda relies more on emotional manipulation than upon logic, since its goal is, in fact, to bring about a change in the public's feelings. So if we're going to actually change things, we actually have to be more intentional about emotional manipulation. And they write, it's time to learn from Madison Avenue. So Madison Avenue in America is where advertising happens. Advertising is propaganda. And I'll show you why that is in a minute. Advertising is propaganda. They say it's time to learn from Madison Avenue to roll out the big guns. Gays must launch a large-scale campaign. We've called it the Waging Peace Campaign to reach straights through the mainstream media. There wasn't social media at the time. This was written about 1989. We're talking about, in their words, propaganda. And they define, this is the book that they, when Peggy was a puppy, she got to my copy of the book, and I paid $120 for this book. And anyway, I now have it on PDF. If you're interested in reading it, I can shoot you a copy of the PDF. They say that the three core strategies of propaganda are, first of all, desensitization. Desensitization. This is their language. Strange things stop being strange if you see them enough. Our brain is wired to be able to put things into the background if we see it enough. That's why, is it Febreze that came up with this whole thing of nose blindness, that if you smell something enough, you no longer smell it? It's a teenage boys. Anyway, leave that alone. And what is true is things you believe to be wrong will gradually become normal if you see them enough. Things you believe to be wrong will gradually become normal if you see them enough. It's interesting, I find myself watching movies with levels of sex and violence in now that would have had me feeling like throwing up 20 years ago. Like could you agree that our society has shifted in what's acceptable in movies and in sex and violence? I think we are part of what we know about comedy, to get people to, or even all stories. In order to tell an effective story, you've got to build tension. And you've got to build surprise. And gradually, one thing that created tension and surprise 20 years ago won't create the same level of tension and surprise now because we've become desensitized to it. So Hunter and Madsen say that the first tool of propaganda is desensitization. They say the second tool of propaganda is what they call jamming. Now, jamming is through examples, pictures, and stories to connect negative emotions to things that seemed positive before to the person. So attach negative emotions to something that seemed positive before. So a lot of advertising does this. Cigarette cartons are an attempt to jam. Because they're putting these horrific pictures on there, they're wanting, for people who feel like cigarettes are a good thing for them, they're trying to make them feel like they're a bad thing and attach negative emotions to it. It's one kind of advertising. The RACT at the moment is trying to position a group of young people getting together and having fun. They're trying to somehow trigger a jamming message that says, when you go in the car together, you are at risk of dying. So they're attaching death to young people relaxing and drinking and having fun. So jamming is where you attach a negative emotion to something that people feel positively about. And the opposite of that is interesting enough, they use the language of conversion. And that is, through examples, pictures, and stories, positive emotions get attached to things that before seemed clearly wrong, or may not have seemed, being conscious of it all. So almost all advertising is this kind of conversion. People, Coke ads never will tell you about the flavour of Coke. They are trying to attach positive emotions to the brand of Coke. They're not actually trying to sell you a soft drink. That's what conversion is about, helping you to feel positive emotions about something that you haven't up till now felt positive emotions about. And I'm fascinated by these guys. Then have a whole lot of practical examples about how we put these three strategies into action to change societal thinking about same-sex people. And as I said, the way church thought about same-sex people, same-sex attracted people, had to change. But from a Christian point of view, we want to make sure our attitudes are shaped by the Bible and not by propaganda. And so one of the things we have to watch is this beast is a master at propaganda. And I am not equating same-sex attracted people with the beast, to make that clear. But what I am saying is that the forces of propaganda, the forces of advertising shape you to a point where you think things are normal on the basis of somebody else's vested interest. And one of the things we have to come to terms with is much of the way you believe, much of the things that you believe to be normal and right have been shaped not necessarily through the Bible and its understanding, but through Babylon and its understanding and the beast's use of the forces of Babylon. So everything that this beast does is a lie. Everything this beast does is a lie. And its major focus is to get you to worship the wrong thing. What is worship? We said it last week. Worship is what is the most important thing in your world to you. Worship is what is the most important thing in the world to you, and Revelation is all about worship. You could probably sum up Revelation by saying it is the question of who will you worship, is what the whole book of Revelation is about. What is the organising principle of your life? And one of the things we see about this beast is it forces all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands and on their foreheads. One of the marks of the beast is it's not keen to give you an opinion. It's not keen for you to have the space to come to your own understanding. It will tell you what is right and wrong. It will force you. It'll try and squeeze you into its mold and get you to believe the lie. And we get this picture of the mark of the beast. A lot of people have been really worried about this whole thing of the mark of the beast. This is a little bit controversial, but I know there was some people who were pretty sure that the COVID vaccine was the mark of the beast, and they were very worried that if they got the COVID vaccine, they would have accidentally got the mark of the beast. And the one of the things right up front to understand about the mark of the beast is it's not something you will accidentally take on. It is talked about in Revelation a few times, and every other time it is spoken about as the mark of the beast. And you'll see there's a number of times there, 14, verse 14, 11, 16, 2, and 19, 20. Each time it's to do with their worshipping the wrong thing. It's not to do with the mark, it's to do with your heart. It's what you worship. And this is something, again, one of the challenges we have is we read Revelation from the context of 21st century people who are not shaped by our love and understanding of the Old Testament. There is a very direct reference to the Old Testament when it comes to the mark of the beast. I don't know if you have come across this. Whenever we have a child dedication, we actually read this verse out. It says, "Fix these," this is Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 18, "Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates." Do you see that? That it is what God's interested in is your heart. Take these words of mine, put them in your heart, and put them on your hands and on your foreheads as symbols. And so right there in the Old Testament, we get the sense that the mark of the beast is meant to be symbolic of a different kind of word. A word that says, you are the center of the universe. You are the one, it is the worshipping the wrong thing. And people who are looking for a literal mark of the beast, in my view, leave themselves open. They misread Scripture because they also, often people who are looking for the literal word of the beast are quite happy to acknowledge that Jesus' mark is not literal but figurative. Because one of the things we see right the way through Revelation is that Jesus actually puts a mark on people's foreheads. Revelation 7:3, "Don't harm the land or the sea or the trees till we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of God." Revelation 14:1, "Then I looked, and there before me was a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 who had his name and father's name written on their foreheads." There's a reference in Ezekiel. "Go throughout the city of Jerusalem, put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it." What this mark of the beast is, essentially on your hands, sort of on the stuff you do, and on your foreheads, on how you think. It is a mark of allegiance. One of the themes of Revelation is this question that comes up over and over and over again is, whose team are you on? Whose team are you on? Are you on Team Dragon or are you on Team Lamb? Who are you organising your life around? It's about our worship. Now, there is a sense, for those who are looking for one mark of the beast, I think we leave ourselves a bit open because there are lots of ways that the beasts of history have used to mark people that are on their team and people who are not on their team. And even today, in some countries, on your ID card, it tells you whether you're a Christian or a Muslim and it's life-threatening to change. There are lots of ways that governments, some of the obvious things that come to mind are what happened in the Second World War. There are lots of times and lots of ways governments have used marks to determine people. And what this is saying is, as followers of Jesus, we've got to watch the marks we just unquestioningly adopt. one of the signs of this mark of the beast is that it affects your ability to buy and sell. I'm not saying your credit rating is a mark of the beast, but it is a mark that affects your ability to buy or sell that's put on by an external force. I think we have to watch valuing people by external marks. You see, we are wired to join teams. And sometimes that's a bit of fun, like how we all like to stir people who go for Melbourne, Chris. We are wired to take on identity markers. But sometimes it's serious. And there are all kinds of marks. One of the things we take on, as I said, Coca-Cola is not selling you fizzy water. They are selling you a picture of happiness and a whole lot of values that are associated. One of the things we learned in marketing is about all brands have values. And we can unquestioningly buy into the values of the brands we surround ourselves with. There will be this sense that what John is saying, watch out for the forces that are going to want you to align yourself with the forces of evil. And particularly, you're going to see when this false religion, this false prophet gets going, working with the other beast, it's going to really work through one of the primary ways it's going to try and force you into its agenda is through money, through how you buy and sell. And one of the ongoing challenges for Christians is at what level do I compromise? In the workplace, or to get a job, or with my taxes, or there is an ongoing challenge when it comes to money. And what John seems to be saying is that the mark of the beast is going to be tied up with our money. And it shouldn't be a surprise that Jesus says no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You cannot serve both God and money. If money is setting your agenda, then the beast is setting your agenda. John is wanting us to be very clear. It's not a superficial. One of the things is we can get comfortable. What John is trying to do with Revelation is engage our imaginations and help us realize the real battle we're in. Paul writes to Timothy, the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. There's going to be economic forces that are going to want you to align your life with the forces of evil. They just are. There are going to be all kinds of lies that will keep promising, believe this and you'll get ahead. Believe that and you'll get ahead. Align yourself with this cause or that cause and you'll, fit in. And what John is wanting us to see is if you're going to align yourself with any cause other than Jesus, you are in danger. And we particularly have to watch. Followers of Jesus have to watch when it comes to politics. We tend to take on badges of honour. And you think about the three most challenging questions for Tasmanian society recently. The first, like when I first arrived, we had the same-sex marriage debate. Then we've had the yes and thing for the voice to Parliament, and now we've got the stadium. And in each one of these cases, there's all kinds of stickers and flags and ways you can identify. And if you disagree with, whatever position it is, then you are dehumanized. You are seen as the enemy. Followers of Jesus don't get the luxury of being able to dehumanize anybody. We don't get the luxury of seeing these people as less than human, because we are the people who love our neighbours, even when they disagree with us. And so we've got to watch too quickly taking on political badges, taking on political causes, and identifying our identities with those political causes. Because mostly in our society, those causes are about in-groups and out-groups, and the out-groups are seen as the enemy, and as followers of Jesus, you don't get to do that. You don't get to not love people. Jesus comes. The first beast is all about power. The second beast is all about lies. And John, in his gospel, says, you know what? Jesus comes as the antithesis to that. Instead of power, Jesus comes full of grace. And instead of deception, Jesus comes full of truth. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We've seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. The mistake Christians make is we try and overpower the powerful. And when we do that, we end up becoming the monster to try and stop the monster winning. John says, no, the antidote to the monster is being faithful and being willing to die. Not becoming a bigger monster. And one of the dilemmas for all Christians is where we see people saying stuff that we believe not to be true. It's tempting to want to say, you're wrong. Let me show you how many ways you're wrong. And if you listen to me, then you'll finally be free. And we have all kinds of arguments, seeing people as the enemy because they believe differently to us. There is not a person on the planet that Jesus doesn't love, and there's not a person on the planet that you get an excuse not to love, even if you disagree with them. Jesus comes full of grace and truth, and we can relax in that he is the way, the truth, and the life. The lies of both beasts are about where you find life. The first beast wants you to believe that you'll find life if you can do what you want, and so you align yourself with powerful people so you get to do what you want. The second beast gets you to say, if you can just believe this and think this and do that, then and you can get the right ways of thinking, the right worship going in your life, then you'll finally be free. Jesus says, no. It's actually not complicated. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They'll come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they might have life and have it to the full. You will not find life through reaching for power or reaching for the right set of ideas. You will only find life in Jesus. And he has come that you might have life and have it to the full. Let's pray. Jesus, thank you. These beasts want to look scary. They want to give us an agenda so that we might, find our faith and find our way forward. But Jesus, thank you that their agenda just crumbles into dust in the face of your cross. Thank you that you are the path to life. Power and lies are not. Forgive us for the times where we have reached for power or reached for lies to make life a bit more comfortable. Help us live in your grace and truth. Thank you that life comes no other way. Help us be fully open to the life that is only available in and through you, Jesus. We ask this in your name. Amen.